I'll give it one more minute to make sure anyone can join whoever's late. Okay, I think we're ready. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for joining our Southeast Asia webinar. Can I remind everyone to turn off their cameras and mics while they're not speaking? At the end, we will have a Q&A, but if you have any questions, feel free to submit them into the comment box at any time. The webinar is recorded and will be uploaded on the Business Wales website. And after the webinar, we will be sharing the presentation, an evaluation form, and the recording. And now I'll just pass you over to Eleanor Harris, who's Head of Trade at the Welsh Government.
Welcome everybody, good morning. As Nick just said, my name's Eleanor Harris. I'm Head of Trade at Welsh Government, which means I'm responsible for the support that we provide to help businesses in Wales to export. Exporting has always been an important vehicle for business growth, but it's even more so now as we focus on recovering from the effects of the pandemic. We published our Export Action Plan at the end of 2020, and I'm pleased to be able to say that following the recent Welsh Government elections, the delivery of the Export Plan remains one of the key commitments of the new programme for government for 2021 to 26. In that plan, we emphasise the importance of working with others to deliver. So I'm really pleased to be working with the UK-ASEAN Business Council on this event today. Very important partners for us in Welsh Government, and we have got sort of quite a track record of working together in the past. This is one of many webinars that we have and will deliver to promote exports. Southeast Asia is full of opportunities for Welsh exporters, and today we'll provide you with some examples of how you can take advantage of these. I'm now going to hand over to Ian Gibbons, the CEO of UK-ABC. Ian and I met what seems a lifetime ago when he was based in Dubai. So it's great to see him again today. He has a lifetime experience in diplomacy and international trade and was latterly Consul General in Vietnam for UK government, with responsibility for the overseas business network across the region. He's now leading the UK-ABC Business Council from London. So I'm looking forward to hearing Ian's insights on doing business in the region. Over to you, Ian.
Thank you very much, Eleanor. I don't know, Ken. 1 second, sorry. There we are. Good. Hopefully everyone can see me now. Thank you very much, Eleanor. Lovely to be back in touch with you and other colleagues at the Welsh Government. As Eleanor says, I'm Ian Gibbons. I'm the Chief Executive of the UK-ASEAN Business Council. Been here for about 9 months. And most recently, I was in the Foreign Office working as Consul General in Vietnam. And just very briefly about what does the UK-ABC do. We're partly government, partly private sector funded. What we're not a think tank, but we are a facilitator. I think I like to call us an enabler, a convener. So we basically bring people and things and make connections. So we host events, we host seminars, we host webinars, and in normal times we will be doing many in-person events, which to me will always be the best way of doing business because it's about how you interact, how you make relationships, how you make partnerships going forward. But what we are about definitely is about ASEAN, the ASEAN business community. Now, why ASEAN? Well, I may be preaching to the converted, but there's an awful lot of people out there that still don't really understand what ASEAN is and where it is, quite frankly. It's largely a hidden gem, but it's quite a large gem to hide. Approximately 650 million consumers across the ASEAN region. So it sometimes goes under the radar in terms of being talked about by India and China and North America, etc. But ASEAN is a vibrant economic community, And I'm not just saying this because I worked there and I had a role there, but it's a wonderful opportunity for British businesses, and particularly today Welsh businesses, to explore and make long-term business gains and partnerships. Why ASEAN? Also because the United Kingdom has a wonderful reputation, both politically and commercially. It's been well regarded in the region for a long time, but it's really has a high profile right now. So since Brexit, the UK now has its own embassy to ASEAN. So previously, the work that the United Kingdom would have done would have fallen under the EU embassy. But now that we are out of Europe, we have our own embassy, we have our own ambassador, and that's really important in terms of articulating that wider offer, the wider UK offer, but particularly today, how we can actually represent Welsh business in the region. And that is a wonderful step forward. Politically, we're in the process of getting dialogue status. Now, what that actually means is it gives us a formal voice with the ASEAN countries, and it means we have a seat at the table alongside our EU ASEAN representatives, but also importantly representatives from the ASEAN countries. So the UK will hopefully be signed off later this year as a formal dialogue partner. Now, how do Welsh businesses go about making the most of this opportunity? Like anywhere else in the world, you can go it alone. You can make your own opportunities and make your own luck, and hopefully it will come off. But in my experience, and as Eleanor said, I've worked abroad and worked in many markets for many years actually. What I have found in all the markets in which I've worked, but particularly the ASEAN market, the absolutely only way to do business is to work in partnership, to work in collaboration and build relationships and nurture those relationships. And the way to do that would be through the Welsh Government initially, but also then through the British embassies, the British High Commissions and the British consulates throughout that wide ASEAN stage. And there's another important player in the region. They are the British Chambers of Commerce. And British Chambers are in all the ASEAN markets. And I know for a fact from my time in Vietnam, some very successful business has been done for Welsh companies in Vietnam. Worked very closely with Study in Wales in terms of the Great Education Campaign. That's been a wonderful collaboration, and I think very, very successful in showcasing the excellence of Wales generally, but particularly in the education sector. I hopefully get everyone a laugh out, so forgive my very poor Welsh pronunciation, but there's a Welsh company called Halen Mon, who are exporting sea salt to Singapore, and that's a great success story. And that has been worked through a very interesting route and delivered through the British Chamber there in Singapore. In Vietnam, Shire Oak, a very well-known and respected company now in the renewables sector, has worked very closely with the Department for International Trade team in Vietnam, and is making great inroads in establishing wonderful connections with Vietnam, both at a regional, provincial and national level. And for those of you that have any experience of doing business in places like Vietnam, it's absolutely essential to make your mark locally. And that's really important to do that through the local DIT Foreign Office representation. And that's what Shire Oak have done very well. So use all of these entities, all of these individuals, all of these parts of the British government overseas for the maximum benefit for you. It's about investing. It's not about just investing time as a company, but it's about investing time as individuals, just to say, to build the relationships, to nurture those relationships, and prove to your interlocutors overseas that you mean business, that you want business, and that you're here to stay. You can make or break your relationships by either investing in them or not. And I would absolutely recommend that you do the former, that you take the time to build, and then you will reap the benefits. Build that reputation, because that's the thing that will count. And I wish you all every success. Happy to take any questions later, but I'll end my my comments now. But wish you all every success, and thanks very much for having me on this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. That was fantastic. Really useful insights for all of the attendees here today. Oh, there's a screen with your details on. Just to move on now, I'm going to introduce you to Ollie Riches, the chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce in Indonesia, who's going to take us through how we can access, how you as businesses from Wales can access ASEAN's opportunities. So it's over to you. Thanks, Ollie.
Thank you, Eleanor, and to Ian as well. Good afternoon, everybody from Jakarta. As Eleanor says, my name is Ollie Riches. I wear a few different hats. I'm the President Director and Head of Southeast Asia for Michael Page Group, which is a UK executive recruitment company. I've been in the region for 14 years, having set up our businesses in China and then across Southeast Asia over the last 8 years. Very much involved with startup companies in that aspect as well. A lot of international businesses investing and setting up operations around Asia have been a key part of our client base. In December 2020, I was appointed the chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce in Indonesia, and it's very much with that hat that I'm presenting to you today. I've been asked to really talk about the opportunities in ASEAN and Ian and taking on his positive views and taking that on from my perspective, and then also a little bit about the how in terms of where to start and how to get things moving. Having set up businesses myself around the region, I'm very happy to then also answer any questions at the end as well. The obligatory map, and this is the sort of ASEAN in itself. The key here is the British Chamber has physical offices across all of the countries in ASEAN. If you are looking to potentially open up, my advice is the likes of Tony and Eleanor and their teams are very well versed to help you get moving, and clearly I'm very happy to be a point of contact on the ground in the region as well, because depending on where you're looking to potentially open operations, I can point you in the right direction very quickly for advice and support that you may need. If we move on to the next slide, I'll give you some overview stats. So that ASEAN, there's no other way of saying it, it is a huge market, and there's some comparisons on the next slide. Just to point out a couple of things here. Sorry, go back one, my bad. A couple of things here. Manufacturing and services, still the traditional sectors do dominate. Having said that, the last 5-6 years, the rise of the tech industries has really been significant across the region. You may have heard of some of the unicorn stories, and they've really put the flag in the ground for a lot of these countries. Are hugely popular in country in terms of national pride, but have also created a lot of opportunities for foreign investment and right through their supply chains as well. And on top of that, we are also seeing significant growth around the environment, renewable energy sector as well, and quite a lot of investment coming from the UK overall in that space. Thanks, Veronica. As a comparison, so ASEAN would be is the 5th largest economy in the world and is the 3rd largest in Asia. Very large population. It's significant in terms of it's very compelling when we talk to potential investors. Often it's an unknown in terms of the genuine size of the region. And this slide in itself, I think, sort of tends to open people's eyes to a region which maybe ASEAN isn't as well known outside of the region as it could be. I mentioned internet, and this is significant. Really split across 4 areas. So fintech has been a big growth area. A lot of these countries, there is a bit of a situation with the haves and have-nots, and so the fintech companies really reaching out to the mass populations have had a lot of success. Often they are foreign invested. EdTech, again, not just because of the recent conditions with pandemic and homeschooling, but also prior to that as well, remote access is a challenge. So education tech has really been a prominent industry. We've seen alongside agri-tech is growing across all of these countries outside of Singapore particularly, and then health tech, which again for obvious reasons has come to prominence in the last 18 months or so. What has that done? It's created huge talent demands. So we've seen big impact on education in terms of looking at where they can fill these talent gaps and looking overseas for that type of talent and partnerships with universities overseas, particularly around newer subject matter. So anything to do with developers, tech itself, software engineers. There are huge opportunities in these countries to partner with government, but also private sector in helping supply the sort of the grassroots talent right through to the sort of more senior talent needed to help investments gain traction and also return as well. That's not to say the internet and digital tech is the only areas. As I said, there are a lot of opportunities around the more traditional sectors as well, but ASEAN is really becoming very well known for its progress on the technology space. It's also a very young population in general. So in China, you tend to find it's a much older population. In ASEAN, it's the other way around. It's the demographics are very compelling in the fact that it's the average age in the workforce is much, much younger, which again lends itself to some of the newer industries who are coming in. I do sit in Indonesia, so I know Indonesia very well. I think The Guardian recently described Indonesia as the world's biggest secret, and I would certainly echo that. I launched our business here back in 2013, and I remember talking to shareholders in the UK and the US, and one or two of them had been to Bali, and that was about their only knowledge of it. Over the last 7 years, our office in Jakarta across Michael Page Group, which is 170 offices, is the fastest growing office we've had globally during that time. So it's really put Indonesia on the map, and it's becoming a very significant part of our Asia Pac strategy. It's compelling in itself in terms of the demographics, with the fourth largest country in the world. It is hosting the G20 next year, which I'll come on to in a little bit, and widely seen to be the biggest market. If you are investing in ASEAN, then Indonesia generally needs to be part of your planning. McKinsey wrote a report that Indonesia is likely to have a top 10 economy globally by 2030, and those in country can see that is realistic. It's not a sort of a PR stunt by any stretch. Very open to innovations. That last line there is important. It's a very creative economy. It's a very creative population as well in terms of the culture. Very entrepreneurial. We work with a lot of SMEs, a lot of startups, and it's a country which maybe has a perception of not being the easiest to come into and start up operations. But the reality is, once you're on the ground, I think most business leaders I speak to weren't aware of the actual opportunity existed until they actually were sort of physically here. So we'll come on to that in a second in terms of some of the perceptions versus reality of Indonesia as a market. Moving on, in terms of the chamber itself, and this is partly moving on to the how to access these types of markets. And whilst this is very much for Indonesia, this is replicated, as I said on the earlier slide, across the region. It is BritCham, or British Chamber, is a membership organisation. In Indonesia, we have, I think, just over 260 corporate members now, with over 1,000 people representing from those, and it's one of the most established chambers in the country. The business centre is very relevant. The business centre itself is very much set up to facilitate market access, particularly for SMEs. We've helped over 1,000 British SMEs to date, and that number, despite pandemics and everything, is continuing to increase. Clearly there's a lot of interest in Indonesia, particularly from countries like China, Japan, India, Korea. There's a lot of investment coming in from those countries, but there is a significant British presence as well. And one thing we are very commonly made aware of is there's a very sort of significant passion for anything British in Indonesia. So brands are particularly popular with the communities here. So we're seeing increasing amounts of interest and often interest then turning into reality rather than just due diligence. On that, the British Chamber does also provide a lot of due diligence services as well to help you bridge the gap. And often the biggest challenge is how to find information on some of these countries. It is not easy. On the education side, this is a big play for us. We have a Human Capital and Education Centre, which now has 12 university partnerships in the UK, which is a two-way partnership, helping promote UK education, but also clearly helping, as I mentioned earlier, fill some of those talent gaps and make people aware of where the opportunities are in these countries. Again, bridging that communication challenge or communication gap. Again, replicated in some of the other chambers around the region as well, but Indonesia certainly has the largest presence in these two capacities out of the others. In terms of supporting SMEs, which is probably more relevant, bespoke market research. So again, it's not just off the shelf and read a book and hope you get it right. It's very much tailored to the industry, the size of the business, the plans for the business, the timing attached to that as well. Matching with local companies. Very often coming into these countries, you do need a local partner or a JV. That can often be the most complicated part of the process, and the trust factor is clearly key to that, particularly when you're managing things remotely. The British Chamber very much can be at the centre of that to ensure that the companies you are potentially looking to partner with are vetted properly, and due diligence is done around that as well, or introduced. So if you have no partners and need to start somewhere, then again the Chamber can assist you with that. As Ian alluded to, that often crosses over government as well. So we get a lot of access to trade missions. Most of them are virtual these days for obvious reasons. And what's been, I suppose, pleasing is the pandemic hasn't stopped trade in that respect. So everything has now switched to virtual and has actually been fairly seamless. We'd much rather go back to physical trade missions and being able to come into country, but clearly that's not possible and maybe not be possible for a while longer. So that shouldn't stop conversations, and the virtual arrangements made have been very impressive actually in such a short period of time to switch over to that. Some key highlights, as I mentioned, that there's been significant interest from SMEs in Indonesia, as those numbers can show you. So a bit of a recap, as I said, virtual side of things, it is well worth, if you are looking at any of these countries potentially, I would encourage you to sign up to one or two of the chambers. There's a lot of webinars, a lot of workshops, focus groups on a whole range of subjects and industries, which is facilitated there to cater for most needs. If there's a specific area that you're interested in, as I said, feel free to reach out to myself or through the team in Wales, and very happy to sort of tailor it around your specific needs. The presentation I'm giving will be, I think, sent on to you as well. So I'm appreciate there's a time pressure, so I'm rattling through things, but feel free to read this through in your own time as well. Some of you may be aware of the Northern Powerhouse Trade Mission, and Northern Powerhouse is a big partner for the British Chamber and a good example, case study of the partnerships which exist to enable access to these countries. As I said, the sectors we cover are very broad. I would point to environment. As I said, Indonesia is hosting the G20 next year. What that has meant is there's been a significant interest level, I think, from government, not just Indonesia, but its neighbouring countries as well. Clearly, the spotlight will be on these countries next year around the G20, and one of the biggest parts of that is what are they doing around climate change. And I think it's fair to say some are quite far behind the promises they've made previously. So there is a bit of a catch-up happening, which does present opportunities for foreign invested businesses to come in and help accelerate that process around renewable energy, anything really to do with COP26, the race to zero, or any sort of renewable energy initiatives. Whereas a couple of years ago, maybe would have been some barriers to access. Those barriers are certainly being lifted as the government is under pressure to advance its messaging and tangible results on that space. UK presence, some familiar names for you, just to show that you're not alone if you are looking to enter this into these markets. And this is Indonesia in particular, but often these companies have presence in most of the ASEAN region. The most recent one to launch in Indonesia was Boots, We've seen them. They've been looking, and they're a good example that they took quite a long time to come in. Admittedly, speaking to their leaders here, they'd wish they'd opened in Indonesia about 10 years ago, with the opportunities which exist here. Again, some challenges around local partnerships, which if they had their time again, maybe would have done slightly differently, but they are now here and have a very aggressive growth plan. If we move on to some of the SMEs, I've highlighted 2 or 3 more recent ones where we have done some work recently with them. The likes of Brompton Bikes are a good example of, again, wanting to come into the market, but not necessarily having the know-how. And I think they would be the first to admit that. And a lot of different advice from different sources, which can get quite confusing. Now they have come in, they've set up the right partnerships. They've learned an awful lot about the market in the last 6 months, and are now expanding rapidly around the region, both in terms of manufacturing capacity as well as on the retail side as well. So again, very happy to go through any of those case studies in more detail with you. There's Norvik, there's Really English, there's a few there who, again, if you were interested in investing in this region or opening operations, I know that the leaders of those companies would be very happy to share their advice and knowledge as well, on what to do and what not to do. Often it's good to hear from people who've recently set up as well, because they can give very strong advice. The question I'm asked most, if you go on one more slide, the question I'm asked most is really around the reality in country. So corruption and some of these things I fully understand. The perception outside can be different to the reality inside country. This shows you that green means that improving. So I've set up businesses myself in Indonesia. We've done it as a public listed company with no shortcuts. So we clearly have to be very careful on these things. And very rarely do we see active signs of areas like corruption. So I think it's a slightly overplayed myth. Yes, some other countries are happier to play in the grey areas, which I've mentioned some of them previously, just to get things done. You tend to find companies from the UK, quite rightly, are slightly more cautious around that. The advice I give you is you need to have some kind of physical presence on the ground here. It's very hard to manage these countries remotely. So you need either a strong general manager or yourself in country for a period of time, just to really understand the landscape. The value of partnerships is very significant, as Ian will know. These are very relationship-led business cultures. You need to take your time on finding the right partner, but that trust and communication is key. But my advice is you do need a physical presence in country from somebody from the company representing you. That tends to get away, often leads to much more sort of smooth transition process and away from some of the grey areas that companies really don't want to get mixed up in. Indonesia and other countries around the region have got a reputation for being quite protectionist and making it hard for access for foreign companies. To agree, that is still true, but we've certainly seen significant relaxing of some of those policies in the last period of time as these countries start opening their borders slightly to business trade, not necessarily to tourist trades these days, but to business trade. So again, timing wise, it's a very different landscape than it maybe would have been 10 years ago. And the advice we're giving to companies is now is the time. Don't miss the boat in terms of being overly cautious, because there's plenty of support on the ground to help you navigate around some of those maybe misconceptions of doing business in these countries. Some of the areas we can support you with, or the Chamber can support you with, full service really. So the nature of business these days, as I said, you do need access to the country, you do need somebody to be here, but in terms of getting things moving, this is where the likes of the Chamber of Commerce can really help you, and it lists there quite a lot of the services being offered. So it really is from embryonic stage through to launch, and then post-launch as well. Support services from anything from finding the right talent through to just setting up a remote office, or connecting you to, as I said, relevant partners, whether that be on the legal regulatory side or the actual commercial side itself. Often connecting you to other companies, as I said earlier, who've done it themselves is often the best way, just so you hear it directly from companies who've had similar conversations at different times as you might be having coming up. Some of these I've covered, but some compelling reasons. It is a young population, as I said. It's certainly Indonesia is the emerging global powerhouse in Asia. We're seeing a lot of business which was traditionally going to China, particularly around manufacturing and the industrial space. Companies, and often this is SMEs, sort of diluting that risk, looking for better coverage around the region. And Indonesia is quickly becoming a must-have rather than a nice-to-have, but also is genuinely a good option beyond China as well. China maybe is getting slightly harder to do business there. Countries like Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines are very well positioned, slightly behind in some respects, but are catching up very quickly in a lot of the infrastructure and business cultures that they're trying to promote. It is cost competitive. You know, there's this compelling reason in itself. A lot of companies do come here because of that side of things. The internet economy I've explained previously is really making significant modernization of a lot of the business being done in these countries. And you know, there is a track record there. So it's, you know, it's not as pioneering maybe as it sounds or would have sounded 15, 20 years ago. And it's, you know, sometimes it's misunderstood, but it's one of the more, you know, Indonesia certainly is one of the more stable GDPs globally over the last decade, which again is this sort of perception versus reality. In China, you can write a business plan quite easily because the government is very much promoting one thing only. In countries like Indonesia and some others, Vietnam, Thailand, there are a few more interest groups, which makes sometimes predicting where the government's going a little bit harder. But again, knowledge on the ground can certainly help with that. But the scalable opportunities here are vast, and the desire to do business with British businesses is significant as well, and well worth taking advantage of. As a final step, so in terms of contacts, I'm happy to share my contact information. If anyone does have any direct questions, I'm very happy to answer them. Or if you'd like to reach out to me separately, I'm very happy to either answer myself or put you in touch with people I know who can help answer those questions with you. And with that, I shall pass you back to my friend Ken Wells, the Partnerships Director of UK-ABC. Thank you.
Ollie, thank you. That was absolutely tremendous. And I think we're going to have you back with us a bit later on together with Ian when we take questions from everybody on the call. And it is great to have so many excellent companies from Wales with us today. We've got about 30 companies on the call, everything from specialist personal equipment, food companies, ciders, beers, even Welsh whiskey, spring water, samosas, and the Welsh meat industry too. We've got health companies in pharmaceutical innovation, diagnostics, specialist surgical equipment. We've got companies in telecom manufacturing and telecom services and geoscience. Ollie mentioned educational services. We've got online English education from Wales, and we've got Higher Education Institute on the call as well. In children's products, we've got everything from bibs to bikes. And we mustn't forget steel and steel fabrication as well. So we've got you know, famous Welsh steel represented on the call, and we'll be hearing shortly from one of the steel fabrication companies. Ollie also mentioned sustainability, and pleased to say that we have a sustainability company on the call. And last but not least, we also have companies in intellectual property and business services, including publishing, and we'll be hearing from one of the intellectual property companies too. So please do come through with your questions, and we'll get through as many of those questions as we can. But first of all, I'd like to introduce three standout Welsh companies and take some initial feedback from them and some insight from them as to what their companies are about, and a little bit about their experience on doing business in Southeast Asia. So I'm going to introduce them in turn. And first of all, very, very pleased to introduce Adrian Sutton, who's the Managing Director of Vortex IoT, Internet of Things. So one of the tech companies operating now, starting to operate in Southeast Asia. Adrian, perhaps you could fill us in a little bit on what Vortex IoT does, and you know, I think you both manufacture and you're a service provider, so tell us more.
Yes, thank Ken, and thank you to ASEAN Business Council and Welsh Government respectively for the invitation and the opportunity to speak here this morning. So yeah, Vortex IoT, Internet of Things company, as you said, Ken, but very much focused on the smart city space, and in particular around environmental monitoring. So we have the largest deployment of air quality monitoring in Europe, and that's through various networks in London and South Wales, and we're looking to replicate that, and in particular leads into Thailand, and we've run pilots across Singapore, but I've visited ASEAN many a time. So our products are very innovative. They're disruptive, but you know, air quality monitoring in particular has become both political and quite high in the social consciousness, not only here in the UK, but globally. And we could see that in the recent G7 and G20 meetings as well, with things like the Paris Accord. So we're right at the heart of that, and right at the heart of sort of decarbonisation. So we're very proud of that, and you know, it's given us great purpose. But we're equally proud of the fact that you know, we build all our products in Wales, and that goes down well in across the ASEAN region, because you know, made in UK, made in Wales really matters to them, and that gives you somewhat of an edge and a level of credibility in that market.
That's absolutely tremendous. Just tell us a bit about, just for others on the call, just a sense of the size of your company, and also the size of the opportunity that you see in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, so we're still a relatively young company. Okay, we're into our literally into the foothills of our 4th year of trading, so about 3.5 years. But you know, the first 2 years is very much given over to the development of our product and establishing the business. But we've grown from myself and my co-founder setting it up, who coincidentally we met in Singapore, and we ripped a beer mat in half, and Vortex was born in January 2017 on a half a beer mat, I can tell you that, right, in a good old Welsh way. But then 6-7 months later, you know, we incorporated. But we've scaled up now, and particularly scaled up in the past 12-18 months. So we have bucked, the pandemic trend, and we've been one of those technologies that is benefiting from the pandemic. And I mean that in the adoption of our product and no other means. Okay. And so we've grown headcount to more than 100% in the past 12 months. So we're at 44 people, and we're fully expect to double that in the coming 12 months. So we're up to, like a 3 million turnover, of which 30% is given over to global sales, and some 10% of that is in the ASEAN region. But again, expecting to grow that, and I'm very pleased that on the call today is our new international business development manager, Paul Nicholas, who's got quite a bit of experience in working in that area. And I'm sure he'll play a significant part in that growth as well.
Excellent, very good. Well, it's a big world out there, Adrian. So what would make you focus down on Southeast Asia? What would be particularly attractive to you there?
Well, if you cherry pick just some of the comments from Ian and Ollie, you know, it's a market of 650 million people. You know, Indonesia represents 40% of that. And then you look at the very strong commercial and political ties between the UK and the ASEAN region historically, right? And the high levels of confidence you can have in dealing with ASEAN market players, you know, makes it a go-to market. So, you know, one of the things of Vortex, as I said, we were founded in 2017 by myself and my co-founder. So, you know, Brexit was always a thing for us. All right. So, and we knew from the get-go that new markets was something that we had to explore. And we had to explore that not only because of the Brexit thing, but also because our products don't respect boundaries. Yeah, we have software and technology products.
Yeah.
So therefore, with the support of Britcham, Welsh government in particular, you know, I started visiting the ASEAN region in 2018, very early. So very much selling vaporware at the time, must be said. But you have to commit to the region, and therefore the scale and diversity that exists across the ASEAN region became very interesting and part of our longer term strategy, and therefore we've committed to that region in that respect. And you know, it's not a flick of the switch, and it doesn't pay off overnight, and it does require time and commitment.
Just one more for you, and then we're going to have to press on. You've talked about Thailand, you've talked about Singapore. You manufacture these Internet of Things devices in Wales. You're delivering services in Thailand. So just tell us how that would come together. I'm presuming you're shipping product and you're then working with a local partner in some capacity to build that local, maybe air quality monitoring. Tell us a bit about that, Adrian.
Yeah, so we look to always look to work with local partners on the ground. You know, as Ollie says, it's very important you have presence on the ground, and therefore we always look to identify. And you know, I've been on several trade missions, and you know, it's often not about the direct sale. It's about building the right relationships to have your presence on the ground. So we invested quite a bit of time into that, and we have a combination of either partners or who can resell and deliver our services, and we work alongside them, or agents who can be our representatives. And
Great.
I think you have to mature with those for success to follow.
Super. There's so much more we could talk about, but for now, let's press on, if we may, to our next company. Thank you, Adrian, for that. Elena Harris, International Sales Director at Atlantic Service. Elena, yours is a specialist blades company, I think.
That's correct.
Fabricating steel and then exporting. Do tell us about Atlantic Service, please.
We've been manufacturing in South Wales since 1970, and we produce bandsaw cutting blades and coil, which then get exported around the globe for use in the meat and fish processing industries. We use only the highest quality steel. We're very proud that it comes from Wales, and we manufacture to ISO 9001, so it's always sort of consistent quality, which gains out respect around the world. We have two routes to market. We export traditionally as coil, ready-made for them to cut according to size. So we look for machine shops, people who will sort of have manufacturing capabilities locally. They will import the coils, they will cut and then make it according to their local market. They will support and they will sell it as a representative or as their own product locally. We then also have ready-made blades, which we will cut according to size, and they will be exported to a distributor, normally somebody who maybe sells machines in the food industry or is a distributor, and they will brand it either as their own product or as an Atlantic product. We offer both the support. With the help of Welsh Government, over the last 20 years, we've gone from one country overseas to export into over 50 countries, Out of the 10 in the ASEAN, we export to 6 now. And that was thanks to a mission in 2018 with the Welsh Government. So we've got another one in the pipeline, and we're constantly working on those relationships and building them slowly as time goes on.
That's brilliant. Just give us a sense of the size of your company and your turnover.
We 60 employees in sort of South Wales, and we have a £7 million export turnover. Out of that, about 80% is export driven. 10% of that goes to the ASEAN market. So it started off very small, and it's grown, and it has increased over the last 5 years.
Great. And it sounded from your comment that Southeast Asia was a relatively recent decision for you in collaboration with the Welsh Government. Could you just then take us through, I mean, that was 2018, I think you said you started. Just give us a sense as to the steps you had to go through in terms of establishing your distribution relationships. I presume you're using local distributors.
Yes, we are. We sort of do everything with the Welsh Government. We will go through the methodology that they suggest. So we'll start on our research. We'll have a report done. We'll commence to sort of analyse what the feedback that they give us. From that, it will be an actual, we will whittle it down a little bit to decide who we want to meet, to start the connections. We will then do a site visit. We will see as many people as we can. We'll establish if they're good partners that we wish to continue or not. I do apologise for the phone. I'm in somebody's office that, anyway. But we will go through the procedures. The visits are the most important. We will find that it allows you to actually have face-to-face contact, to see if the company is somebody that you wish to have a relationship with. If you want to start that business journey, it's hard because they're going to represent you overseas, and you have to have a connection and a business understanding where you're going to go a long journey together. So the Welsh Government will open those doors. They will provide translators. They will provide those meetings. They will set everything up. We will go through a whole series of stages with them. They're on hand if we need to speak to them on anything from particular documentation to anything, really.
That's great.
They are the extension of our company.
Okay. And I mean, I think Ian and Ollie have said it, and you've said it too, the relationships are so important. Yeah. And I just wondered if you could give us a bit of a sense on that, because you're now in 6 markets. So you've established at least 6 relationships. I mean, are they exclusive relationships? How long did you take to find these partners? Just for others on the call who haven't yet made that move, any particular advice that you may have, Elena, please?
They're not all exclusive partnerships. Some will be, as I said, will import the raw sort of coil and they will market it as their own product. Others will purchase directly off us. It depends. It'll take time initially to find those partners. Then you'll commence on the samples, on deciding what the costs, where you're going to go, what sort of trading terms you're going to agree, the payment terms, if it's going air freight, sea freight, depending how they're going. So once you've established and they've managed to test the actual product and they're happy with it, it's okay. It's basically building it up. The initial stages can take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years onwards. There's no sort of, it doesn't fit, one sort of size doesn't fit all. It just depends how ready the other company, how open they are to taking your products on board for their customers. Sometimes we'll have somebody that maybe cuts wood and they want to explore and they think that they can go into the meat and fish and the food industry, and they find a market that it complements them. And so it's a perfect sort of synergy between the companies.
And any tips on how you establish those commercially? I mean, is this a revenue share, or how does it work in terms of your turnover in each country?
No, we will basically support. We won't over saturate a market. So we will look for strategic players and we will support them. If we feel that there's still an area in the country which we haven't explored. So if we have a bandsaw blade distributor, but there is a machine shop manufacturer where we could also sort of help them, then we will sort of additionally have 2 people in the country. But we won't, no, we don't milk it too much. We will actually sort of try and support and get them to be a partner in our business.
Very good. Well, we must leave it there for the moment. We'll do some more Q&A in a moment, but thank you very much, Elena, for that very thorough overview of what you're doing. And finally, intellectual property. And we've got Tim Parry with us. Tim is Business and Finance Director at Patent Seekers. Tim, tell us about Patent Seekers, please.
Yeah, hi everybody. Patent Seekers is a company that provides patent and design research. Me and my brother started the business 15 years ago. We're now Europe's largest independent IP research team, and we've got offices in the UK in Newport, about half a mile from the UK Patent Office. And we've got a small sales office in North America. We provide patent research to around 90% of the UK patent attorney firms, but also in-house counsel at companies like Sony, Nissan, Rolls-Royce, Airbus, Unilever, Black & Decker. We've expanded our services to provide both patents, but also designs and trademark searches. And we've developed over the last 3 years a global patent database, which we've just launched around about 6 to 8 months ago. So that not only patent attorneys can do some research themselves, but also their clients can do research on a very cost-effective commercial database. We have done a trade mission to Singapore because we identified that the Asian market is a huge opportunity for us in the future. We do some work with Asian companies at the moment, mainly through patent attorney firms, but with about 60% of all global patent applications now in Asian languages, that is a key opportunity for us at some point in the future. We have several Asian, well, actually Chinese nationals working for us in the UK, and one of them is a senior manager who's interested in relocating to Singapore. So that's where we see as potentially an opportunity for us to set up in Singapore for targeting the Asian market.
So at the moment you're operating from Wales, but you think you might actually put an office into Singapore?
Yes.
What would be the specific drivers for that, Tim? Why wouldn't you want to just be able to do it remotely from the UK?
I think like the other speakers have said, that having somebody on the ground in a particular country or in that location does make a huge difference in terms of servicing those countries. So just having somebody in that time zone has made a huge difference, and we've noticed it with our office in North America, having somebody local in the same time zone that can answer queries on search inquiries, or even to do with the database and actually providing the sort of backup support, if you like, in terms of customer service.
Very good.
That does make a huge difference.
So tell us about Southeast Asia then. I mean, who are your customers?
Predominantly patent attorney firms in Singapore, China. We have some in Australia as well.
Okay, so these patent attorneys, are they primarily from UK, American, European firms, or are they local Asian attorneys?
A mixture of both. Some of them have, initially we started with branches of UK patent attorney firms, and obviously it was quite easy to make that jump then to servicing their office in Singapore. But since we did the trade mission to Singapore with Welsh government, that helped us to expand to a lot of the local firms there as well.
Very good. And I mean, I guess it's, if I'm a startup firm or if I'm about to enter a new market, I guess people are coming to you saying, is my invention patentable? They're asking you for that basic research.
Yes, we'll provide the research. Sometimes clients will go to the patent attorney firms first, and the attorney may suggest having a pre-filing search done with us. We do have companies coming to us directly and having the search done, or they can actually do some of the research themselves on the Patent World database. So there's various options available. It depends on how comfortable the business is in terms of what they're looking at from other patents in that area. But we also do what's called freedom to operate and invalidity type searches or patent landscaping to look at a technology field and identify who are the key players, which companies are actually competing with your business around the world, because you may not be aware of, say, Asian competitors, unless you've actually seen their products being sold in the same markets as you. You may not see the products that they're developing as well that are coming in, say 18 months to 2 years down the line.
Okay, very good. One last question for you, and then we'll bring Ollie and Ian onto the call as well, and we'll take some questions from the other companies that are with us on the call. Any horror stories, Tim? Anything that you sort of thought, goodness me, if I had thought about that a bit more or I'd done it differently, I could have avoided that?
Yeah, I think having I went to China a few years back, and that I didn't realize how much was required into setting up relationships beforehand, or how many visits it was going to take before we could have build up some customer base there. So I think having the communication with the Welsh government support, that's what we should have done with China, like we did with Singapore.
Very good. Well, good luck with the new Singapore office, and it's been great meeting all of you just one-to-one just now. Now we're going to bring Ollie and Ian onto the call as well, and we'll take some questions. So we've got a question first of all for you, Ollie, from a company called Future Geoscience Limited. So they do basically they do subsurface oil and gas research. So they're basically a geology company. And they were interested, Ollie, in needing some support to find a local representative or a partner or an agent to connect them with oil and gas operators and related companies. Just maybe you could help us there, Ollie, just to explain to Future Geoscience some of the options that they would have in Indonesia, please.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. And I think Isan sent the question. I have responded, Isan, as well, to you. So this is one of the big reasons chambers exist, is to help facilitate those types of conversations. So very much in the comfort zone on that front. Oil and gas and geology related services. I was in a meeting recently actually with a company from the UK asking a very similar question, and we've connected them to some local partners who we've worked with for many years. So that trust element is there. We'd need to know a little bit more about the specifics of really what you're trying to do and the operations you're looking to sort of set up, and that will then help dictate which direction we go in. But very happy to set up a conversation with myself and the executive director of the British Chamber, who's well connected in that space as well. I think we have 4 or 5 of our board members represent O&G companies in Indonesia. So yeah, that's an area we can certainly assist with.
Very good. Thanks for that. One for you, Ian. Just in terms of, and this is more of an ASEAN question, but what would be the first things that you would do or would advise that people do when they're entering one of the ASEAN markets?
Thanks, Ken. I would just go back to what I said earlier, and assuming no prior knowledge of the region, first port of call would be the Welsh government for a start, because they can be the funnel. They can actually own that relationship and be the point person at the Welsh end. But then you have this really well and interconnected bunch of organisations. Now, whether that's the British Chamber, or whether, as I said, it's the consulate or High Commission or embassy, that are there for a reason. And the fact that I think everybody has said the importance of having local representation, all the companies have said the same thing, that it's really massively important to be represented in markets. Similarly, there's a reason why the British government doesn't do everything remotely from the United Kingdom. It's about building those relationships and partnerships locally, you know, with Ollie and his colleagues at Richam, or as Ollie as Michael Page, or anyone that has experience and can take some of that early pain away, Ken, i.e. making those introductions, facilitating meetings, etc. And the chambers have a fundamental and really, really important role in all of this, because there's a lot of private sector individuals working to actually promote the UK in their part-time spare time, and they do it for the love of it, not for the financial gain, as Ollie knows, in the chambers. But there's such a wealth of activity and connectivity that it's just waiting to be activated.
All right, super. Thanks, Ian, for that. One for you, Elena. This is actually something that I was coming to mind as I was speaking with you. So as you were entering these new markets, could you just help others get a sense of the services that you needed to do that? I mean, Ollie talked about people and HR advice, accountancy, legal services, marketing consultancy. Could you just take us through, you know, for Atlantic Service specifically, and feel free to just address one or two of the countries, you know, what were the services that you needed as you made those decisions?
Well, through the research, I mean, predominantly for us, it's payment terms and how we're going to ship. So it may depend. As we've grown with relationships, we've offered accounts, but predominantly we are prepayment with a lot of our customers. We may do 50% sort of before it leaves. We may do various terms when we withhold the bills of lading until the goods arrive. Still always daunting when that happens, because, you know, you might end up, even though the goods are yours, they may be on a ship and you have to bring them back. So it's kind of knowing that when you've been introduced by the Welsh Government, you have a bit of due diligence, you have an understanding, a bit of background about the company to make proper decisions from a business point of view. You also have opportunities where, as you said, with the embassies, you might be able to take them to an evening or an event which is going on, if you're very lucky, when you're overseas, which adds to you as a company. It opens those doors and the relationships, and they want to be involved in sort of being part of the Welsh Government and, you know, the visits, reciprocal visits back to Wales. It's knowing from an IP point of view as well, if it's worth us looking at trademarks, if it's worth us realizing that actually we're not going to get anything, and we have to look at from a different point of view with the customer to make it more bespoke to their company, and therefore they will look after their own products in market locally to protect their business.
That is a key point, I think. Do you get much counterfeit? I mean, you talked about coil. I don't know what coil is. I mean, is that just a thin strip of metal? I mean,
yes, it'll be a very thin strip of metal which will go into a bandsaw machine with the teeth cut in, specified according to the customer's requirements of what they're cutting. Mm-hmm. And no, it is very hard to sort of trademark it. If you do a variation of the tooth, then that is an option, mm-hmm. but it's very hard to prove.
Is it unique? Is your product completely unique? Or
no, it's not. We do have competitors, and we actually have some competitors in the ASEAN market where they have a base in Singapore. So in some respects, some of our competitors have an advantage where the lead time may be less. We have to work then on different ways where we might include shipping in the costs in order to sort of counteract some of it. So it's a bit strategic, and it varies according to country, to company, to what they're involved in, and the margins they want to work to.
Maybe your steel is better than the
oh yes, definitely
local steel. Anyway, that's super. Thanks for that. We're slightly pressed on time. Just one for Adrian, and this may be one we're a little bit too far upstream, but let me try, because it is so important, I think, in your business. Local laws. Any local laws in the markets you're looking at that are particularly issues that you're having to address? I mean, if you're running a network business, I'm sure that there's a lot of local type approval for your products that you have to go through. and also approval to regulate to operate a network as well.
Yes, and and there'll be nuances from one one country to the next. We also tap into our devices are fitted to street lampposts more often than not, and we tap into the power feed from them often. Tapping into that power feed in Singapore is painful as a process to get through, all right? But that's where your people on the ground who can take you through the various ministries and government departments, of which there are a lot in Singapore and some of these other countries, it becomes really important. With regards individual sort of accreditation, then our product is CE marked and certified to UK standards, and that's often like a stamp of approval for many of these. I said earlier about made in UK, particularly around technology, really matters. And I'm sure Elena and Tim see that as well. Right, so that's a common thread, but we certainly see there's a stamp of approval, and we're in kind of a nascent market as well, in that we're in this hyper local air quality. All right, so it's a new thing. So some of these markets, if you take Singapore, it's a very sophisticated market. But if you go to Myanmar and parts of Indonesia, they will look to adopt the standards or some of the products that you got, or recognize the international things.
It's super. Thank you, Adrian, very much. I'm we are getting very pressed on time now, but that's super. So just understanding those local laws, making sure that you don't take any shortcuts, following the the local expectations. Brilliant. Just one for you very quickly, Tim, which is, I think you talked about opening up a local office.
Yeah.
In 1 minute, how would you go about hiring your individual for that office?
Well, we're quite fortunate in that we have, like I said, an Asian national working for us in the UK who wants to relocate to Singapore. Mm-hmm. He's already got knowledge of that area. He's lived in Singapore before.
Yeah.
So I think it would have been a lot harder for us if we were starting from scratch to do it.
Yeah.
But we would still take the advice from Welsh Government and support for
Perfect.
The startup there.
Lovely. That's so much detail there that's come through from everyone. Just a couple of final ones for Ollie, but Ollie has shared his details. So if anybody wants to go back to you, Ollie, I think you've kindly said that you'll be glad to pick up offline. There is somebody who is interested in 5-star hotels. I think this is a company that is absolutely excellent at interior design and quite innovative British and Welsh interior design. Just a quick note on the hotel business in Indonesia, Ollie, opportunities?
Yeah, it's softened in the last 12 months for obvious reasons, but there is still a lot of interest from 5-star groups through to sort of more the business hotels as well in Bali, Lombok and across Indonesia. So there's some good deals to be done at the moment for sure. So that's creating interest.
So link up with Ollie afterwards. Sorry, Ollie, I cut into you.
That's right. Talk to me. I'm not an interior designer, but I can put you in the right direction.
Excellent.
I'm not a fitness expert either.
Yeah, there was somebody who was coming through with a question on fitness, but again, you can connect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely. I think we've just got one more. I have worked in the nursery industry with various brands. The main issue I have experienced time and time again in Asia is parallel imports. Specifically in Taiwan, they have no laws against this, even when a sole distributor is appointed. So I'm not sure whether we're talking about plant nurseries or children's nurseries, but I think it's plant nurseries. Any experience on plants, Ian?
No particular experience in either, but I would say to whoever's posed that question, let us take it offline, because I will be able to introduce them to the country director in Taiwan, who will be able to answer that, because it will be a very local issue, Ken, but we can easily make that happen.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Ian. I knew you'd have an answer for that one. That's brilliant. Well, that's my piece done. So thank you, everyone. just all the energy that comes through from Welsh business is so impressive. Thank you very much for your engagement with us on this today. Just one final, literally one-word answer, or a couple of words from Adrian, Elena, and Tim, which is, of the tips that you had from Ian, I think I know the answer, but which would be your number one?
Market of 650 million people, 5th largest in the world.
Yeah,
Elena?
I'd agree. Research in a big market and one which you perform relationships.
And Tim?
Yeah, I think it's been a bit of an eye-opener with the review that Ollie did as well, for the size of the Indonesian market in particular is something that we hadn't really realized it was that big. So yeah, just market research obviously is a big factor.
Great. Well, thank you very much indeed. I'm now going to hand back to Eleanor. Over to you, Eleanor.
Thanks, everybody. I mean, I'm always fascinated when we have panel sessions by how much actually great information and insight comes out, not just from those of us like Ian and Ollie and myself who were taking that sort of overarching view, but the personal experiences of businesses who are working in those areas. So, thank you so much to all the panelists for giving your time today. I've known you all for quite some time, and yet I still learn something about your business and what you're doing in those markets, and I'm sort of in awe. So I mean, I know you've all given me and Welsh Government a name check today, and I thank you for that. But really, the success that you have in that area, in those regions, and in all exports, is down to yourself and your hard work. If we, the chamber networks, are more widely and through DIT can be there to support you, then that's what gives me the warm fuzzy feeling of working with all of you. And as I say, Ken said he's impressed. I'm always impressed by the success that you all have. To all the participants here, if there's anything that you really want to follow up on, please get in touch. All the contact details will be sent out with the presentations. But if there's anything urgent, internationaltrade@gov.wales. If you get to that, my ITA team will be able to pick that up, and we'll start following up on your inquiries. We can facilitate introductions to all of the British chambers in the region. Not just, I mean, Ollie's did a great job at explaining what the chambers can do, and that's replicated. We haven't worked with Ollie before, but I'm sure we will in the future. But we have worked with the chamber in Vietnam and in Singapore and in Malaysia. And certainly when I was on a trade mission with Tim and Adrian, I think that was the one with the ripped beer mat, was it, Adrian, back in 2018, something where the business was born, if you like, that we had excellent support from the Singapore chamber, the British chamber in Singapore, for that trade mission. And they recently supported us on a virtual trade mission. So, but also as a, if you like, a wider team, we all work with the wider DIT network as well. And businesses in the UK and in Wales have got access to a fantastic sort of widespread network of expertise, contacts, and intelligence that can deal with all businesses, if you like, all types of businesses going forward. So as you can see from the presentations and the size of the market, this is an area of opportunity for businesses in Wales. And I would add my personal encouragement to that of the others earlier, to say, come on, let's go for it. We're here with you to help, but it really needs you to, Ken's giving me the thumbs up. Yeah, go for it. And on that note, I'd say thank you very much to everybody that's attended.
Am I okay to leave? Thank you, everyone.